Hello, I'm Ben Brownlee for Boris FX. When you've been working with optics for a little bit, it starts getting very easy to build up multiple layers of effects to build the eventual look that you actually want. I'm going to take a little moment now to show you how you can use the layer viewer and editing options to dive in, monitor and selectively change the parameters on each layer. If we take a look at our frost layer, we can see the thumbnail has a green outline. This means that any controls that we see inside the viewer will be working on the filter. If I select the spot gradient mask instead, you'll see we have spot controls pop up inside the viewer here. And if I hover over the top of any of these controls in the bottom left hand corner, you can see what parameter it's going to be controlling. So if I hover over the small one, it's going to control the inner radius. If I hover over the larger one, it's going to control the outer radius. There we go. Let me click back on the image thumbnail. We no longer have mask controls visible. Let's turn our attention now to these other four buttons to the left here. We've talked about these briefly in other tutorials, but let's go a little bit deeper now. The eyeball will toggle on and off the entire layer. So that means we're not seeing the filter or any masks attached to it. If I turn these on and off, you can see those Xing out to show that they're not active. Let's turn that back on again. If I come underneath here, we can see the mask button, and the helpful little tooltip tells us that this will enable and disable the mask. So if I click this on, it's now enabling and disabling the mask. And we can see that both in the thumbnail and in the viewer as well. Let's come over to the top button on the left. This is showing us which layer is actively being edited. So if I click on Edit in Beauty Studio, you'll see my presets change, and also the parameters over on the right hand side will also change. If I click on black and white, you'll see again the presets change and the parameters change, and we also get the thumbnail highlighted on the active layer. What we're not seeing though, but let's look back at the frost layer and over to the left, you'll see the monitor is still highlighted for the frost layer. That means that what we're seeing in the viewer is the result of all of these effects being processed, and it works from bottom to top. So we have the original building on with our black and white, our second black and white, our ozone, our beauty studio, and finally the frost. If I want to just see the results of this first black and white filter, what I can do is just double click on the layer's thumbnail, and you'll see that my edit button and my view button are now both active. And what we're seeing in the viewer is just the result of this filter. But I can have multiple effects shown in the viewer. So if I want to see what happens to any changes that I make in this black and white layer, all the way at the very top in the frost layer, I can just turn on my secondary view mode. And this lets me compare these two layers together. And any changes that I make to the black and white are going to ripple through the rest of the filters as well. If I click on a third viewer as well, I can take a look at multiple levels together. So by selecting the viewers in the order I want to see them, I can change the order in which they're displayed. So we have the original, the first black and white, and then the final result. I'll double click on the frost thumbnail just so we highlight that one more time. And finally, we have other view modes up at the top of the viewer here. So we have our side-by-side comparison, which compares our currently selected layer, well, by default with the original, but we can obviously change how that works as we saw previously. I can also do a horizontal or vertical split. And again, we control what split we're seeing with the view or compare button that we just looked at. I can also cycle between A and B images to just do A-B comparisons. And let me just turn that off again. The final way of comparing things is using this snapshot. So the snapshot will create a version of the image as it is when we created that snapshot. So I can come in and maybe test to see how something else looks if I change up some of these controls. And then I'll compare this using the snapshot, which is showing it how it was previously. So this is a great way of letting me experiment a little bit, knowing that if I don't get the look that I really want, if I think that the original image looked better or the snapshot image looked better, I can just undo until we get back to where we were previously. So there's a huge amount of control that we have with viewing, editing, and comparing our different layers. And the more complex your layers become, the more useful this actually is.